Can you share some of your blended learning experiences of working across the sectors since the lockdown? Give you a bit of background on Dan. Dan started his career in FE, as well as most of the other panelists on the call did as well. And so I think he currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, when you do come in, currently works at NTU, and he is the author of the acclaimed Learning Technology, A Handbook for FE Teachers and Assessors. So hopefully he'll be able to give us a bit of information from that, and also talk about his experiences of blended learning since the lockdown. Dan, can I come over to you and ask you about your experiences? Currently you're on mute, just if you can just unmute yourself to participate. Great, Brill, you're in.
Yes, I'm finally in. Yeah, no, you're right. I currently work in Nottingham Trent University, obviously HE. I started out in FE for 7 years at Barnsley College. Long story short, but obviously it led me to where I am now. So quite oddly, my current role is based in human resources. Obviously, there's a dedicated team that works more closely with academia, but my role is more specifically focused on digital capabilities and just all things digital learning and working. So obviously this entire situation, falls right on our laps. So yeah, I could just tell you a little bit about the experience that we had, in our team, during lockdown and obviously post lockdown. So we, as a team, obviously we focus across the entire university, but within our department, which is organisational development, and again that's situated in human resources, we oversee all learning and development, or professional learning and development across the university. So obviously when the situation happened, precisely I think it was 18th of March, memorable day, because that was Wednesday. Then that day, and then the Thursday and the Friday, we ran back-to-back sessions for the entire university on Microsoft Teams, about Microsoft Teams, just to get people up to speed with what it is and what it can do. Because there's a lot of people that went from doing a bit of digital, or quite a bit of digital, but then there was some that didn't do very little digital. So they obviously went to fully digital within a matter of hours. So we had to support those people that had not been familiar with Microsoft Teams and such. So yeah, we did back-to-back sessions, and I think approximately within those couple of days, about 1,000+ staff attended, which was quite a record. So yeah, we did those as webinars. We didn't like record them. We just kept them quite rough and ready sort of thing. Just introducing teams for how to get started sort of thing, and just give some ideas how to create a team, join a team, the basics. Then during those few weeks, as numbers started to tail off a little bit, when people got more comfortable, we started to look at doing coffee and questions, like drop-ins through Teams, just for people that's got any questions, not just about Teams, but just generally about communicating and collaborating and such. But that was part of missing out on the logistics of that, but we created a central team where we did have a channel dedicated for questions and queries as well. This is where we kind of pulled in a lot of resources and guides, not just for university, but Microsoft's own guidance as well, how to do certain things, working out some problems. Obviously you might be familiar with the breakout sessions. So yeah, working across all those sort of things. And then looking to the future, just keep it quite short. Looking at obviously, we'll start to develop some sort of sessions around communicating and collaborating and virtual leadership as well, how that could be supported. But then currently now we're just kind of shaping it up. It originally started off as a blended strategy, how we could make our learning development courses and sessions and things, obviously more blended. But now that's turned into a virtual strategy, because for the next 12 months we will be virtual, which and I suggested that obviously that does need to lead into a blended approach if and when we do get back on campus. Because obviously professional services staff have been encouraged to work from home where possible, so that frees up space for students to return to campus, in a nutshell. So
Right.
just gives a little bit of a background.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, that gives a really good background. That's very similar, I think, to the experience we've had at the group as well. Some of the stories that you were telling there are kind of the way that we approached it as well, which was really interesting to hear. I think the next thing I want to talk about is any sort of best practice principles that any of the panel members have seen that you could share with our members of staff that they could potentially take into the academic year. Best practices you've seen in blended learning. I'm going to you, Dan. What's the best practice that you've seen since the lockdown?
Well, for me personally, it always comes down to like the curriculum sort of design aspect, and I'll approach that on the learning technology sort of perspective. And yeah, in my current role, and obviously in the wider academy, again, it still comes down to curriculum design. So I'll just base it around that sort of thing. And in my opinion, there's no definitive sort of approach or way for blended learning. And to me, it's there's no one size fits all, as we've experienced all these years. But to me, it's contextual. Always to the course, the curriculum, the course, the lessons, the sessions, and it's just trying to identify what is the best approach for that content. And I've seen like recently from some like webinars and some practice and stuff that what people have been saying. There's a common theme that it's not always, it doesn't always have to be synchronous, like live teaching, and asynchronous. Well, synchronous is obviously live, but then asynchronous is not in real time basically. And to encourage that where possible, but again, it always hangs on what the content and the learning is to be delivered. But yeah, because I don't think everyone likes to be online all the time, and you can't, get people to be sat in front of hours of lessons and things. So it's always back down to that initial sort of like conversation or process of what are you trying to achieve with your like course, not just like get it online, but it's how can that content be reimagined. It's really like kind of deconstructing it all and kind of building it back up in a different way, because not everything translates online well. Is one of the issues that we tend to experience. So yeah, and as Rosie mentioned at the beginning, obviously I do have a book on this, and it's in a practical format. But some of the things that I'm mentioning there is an approach that helps you to deconstruct that. And it's about kind of mapping out what is your like teaching content. So it's kind of like, if you use Padlet, for example, it's quite a good way or visual way to do it. But think about what is the the teaching content that you want to deliver, in terms of material. But actually, a step before that, how does the course work? Is it by weekly? Is it by topic? So those could be headings. But then think about your teaching content, break that down into particular topics, such, and put that under wherever that appears in the timeline. Then you could like color code these, but think about how that learning is going to be assessed, where feedback comes in. Are you going to encourage social engagement online as well? And then there's an opportunity to annotate all of that with potential like online activities. And there's also some good tools mentioned already, like Mentimeter and such. I'm a big fan of H5P as well, if you use that or familiar with it. But yeah, it's just kind of like annotation of that and where the best can be. But then obviously the challenge is how you can like prototype that or like design it. Because in reality, really, it's not a lengthy process. It always depends on how big your course is, but also it needs to be, give it a bit of a road test to make sure that it works as intended. Reality checking it sort of thing. And obviously, in this case, it's probably not going to be enough time for that full process. But if you can try that with some colleagues, some peers, just to check that it works, it's clear. So just a bit of a nutshell on that one, but I just want to share this actually from Roger Emery. I can't remember where he works, but a big shout out to him because this is on LinkedIn. I think he posted a few weeks back, so I'll just it's not long, but it's like there's 5 there, like kind of like principles as such, and I really like these. So number 1 is presence, so regular tutor presence in discussions, video calls, response to emails, regular updating or release of materials and activities, and regular formative feedback. Connectedness, so that's regular interactive sessions with tutors and other students, facilitation of class discussions and group work. Eventedness, I really like this one. So it's aware of obviously the need for a live event, not all the time, but having some sort of synchronous element to it. So guest lectures, expert demonstrations, one-off must-see / must-engage learning moments. Facilitation, so comprehensive support, accessible, engagement and achievement, monitoring, easy to engage with, barrier-free / device agnostic, additional resources. Then finally, the content and activities, so rich variety in various media, digital emulations and simulations, self-test quizzes, interactive multimedia, and it's put a nod to H5P there, and obviously aligned assessment of learning outcomes. So I'll just end it on that, but I think those are really good guiding principles to try and, embed in any course.
Yeah, I think they're really, really useful there, Dan. Thanks for sharing those. And yeah, I think actually a lot of those principles appear in the blended learning guide that we've created for staff. So we've created a guide that we're going to be going through later on today. And I think a lot of what you talked about there is in that guide. So hopefully we can link to that. But I will look up that LinkedIn message as well. That's
I'll
really
share the link to it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We can share that with staff. Okay, so I think the last really two questions before we take some questions from the audience, and so these are just going to have to be short. I'm just going to remind the panelists to maybe make their answers short with this one. So Dan, how do you see it evolving from a further education perspective and also a higher education perspective?
It's really interesting, and just an observation on this current situation now. Obviously, I've been doing this sort of role for the last 10 years plus, and all it took was a virus to literally make a huge step change in education. So it's like we've been doing this stuff before, but then I think it's just massively just picked up pace now, and the real importance of not just blended learning, but online learning and distance learning and all the other areas. So it's really interesting how things are, probably more than rapidly, changing and evolving on that area. But I think just one thing to bring back home that is that we all still need that human element. So whether it's blended in the sense it's part human, face to face, and then online, I still think there needs to be an emphasis on people do need that face to face aspect. So whether if we carry on doing blended or it becomes more fully online, I'm not quite sure. There's still two separate areas is what I'm trying to say really, and students do need that face-to-face contact as well as themselves. So it's going to be interesting now, but that kind of like balances out throughout the situation and after it. And as Julie was mentioning as well, it's kind of been happening over the years, like various integrated systems within the virtual learning environment. So I've been seeing a lot of institutions, mainly FE colleges, where they're trying to integrate Microsoft Teams within that environment. So there's an ongoing argument that Teams is the VLE. I'm not quite convinced on that one, but that's another argument. But how they're integrating Teams into the existing learning environment. So it's all you come into one place, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that stuff as well. It's what they call like learning and teaching integrations. So a lot of systems speaking to each other, but really for the learning experience, you just come to the one site and you get that experience. So I think that's going to be probably more complex online environment. And for me, really, what I'll be observing is how the teaching role is going to evolve as well, because obviously as we move more online, it's still going to be blended in some shape or form, but I reckon that the teaching role is going to evolve. Not sure what into, but it's how that teacher role can facilitate in complex online learning environments, because you've not just got a VLE, but you've got to think about using Teams and then all these other new tools and systems that are going to actually emerge, or new ideas for new tools and systems that are going to come out of this. And it's always an ongoing battle for teachers to get familiar with new tools and try to keep a balanced variety of stuff. So I reckon there's going to be a lot of new digital practices that come out of that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, a really good point. Can I ask from each member of the panel, just if you could give the people watching, the staff, the support teams, one piece of advice moving into the next academic year, what would that be? Dan, lasting piece of advice for staff.
Yeah, I've got a few points, but I'll just select the one, and I'll just hone in on the aspect of repurposing existing materials. So well, but I'll start off with what you probably might encourage with your learners is, be kind to yourself. It is, it's an extraordinary time that we're in at the moment. And obviously there's a need to get, material online if it's not already. But yeah, be kind to yourselves in the process, and emphasis on the reusing the existing material. So if I would just get online, think about how that material can be repurposed basically in an online environment. So whether that's your virtual learning environment, if I don't know, using something like Moodle or something where you can try and convert that material into a bit more meaningful way rather than just having a file on the VLE. Just try and think about how that can be, just kind of reimagined. But don't spend too much time on that. Rough and ready might just be fine. But obviously, make sure it's of quality, but and it's clear to students. I'm sure they'll appreciate that you've made an effort. So I'll just leave it with that one. And if you've got learning technologies to access, do seek their advice as well. I'm not sure if you have in your college, but make use of those, in terms of advice that they can potentially offer yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so that's the end of the panel discussion. I'd really like to thank Yusuf, Julie and Dan for joining us on the panel today. Some excellent tips, advice and techniques there, hopefully that everybody's taken away from this panel discussion. We have got lots of questions that have come from people who are watching, which we'll try and address, and I will publish the biographies of people on the panel so that if you want, you can go look them up on LinkedIn and ask them some more questions, if that's okay with all the panel members. We're going to take a 10-minute break now, and we will be back with the guide, which we will be showcasing to staff, which they'll be able to use to help them improve their blended learning techniques in the new academic year. So thank you again to the panel, and thanks everybody for coming. Hopefully it's been really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.